Hello there, outliers. Niiamah Ashong here, and thank you so much for letting me be a part of your journey. I say me, but I really do mean us. I'm over here laughing here with the start of this conversation here, and I think that I want to bring that kind of level of joy and levity into our conversation because I know for a fact that y'all are up to big things in the world, and with that, things can feel heavy. And I like to say that that we control gravity. We can do heavy things in a light way, and that lightness continues to lift us up. I'm glad to be here on the Outliers Edge Roundtable with four incredible outliers who will lift you up and help you up level through in order to help you get to your next level of impact, income, and identity. So let's get a chance to get to know these outliers here today. Why don't we start over with you, Dan? Dan, would you mind sharing more about you and the game you're currently playing?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation to be here. I'm excited to have this dialogue with you and with the rest of the panel as well. I'm Dan O'Rourke. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My company is called High Impact Industries. So, Niiamah, I love the way that you keep using the word impact because that's one of my key words, my power words as well. Also do business as Dan O'Rourke Consulting, and really it's a health, wellness, and personal development program for everybody. My four pillars, I call it TEAM as an acronym to make it easy. T stands for thinking and mindset. E is eating and nutrition. A is actions and habits for success. And movement and exercise is the M. And so I kind of coupled it together to produce what I think is the ultimate pillars to health, wellness, and personal development. My podcast is called the Optimal You Podcast. And I was just talking to the panel, but then I'm just in the process of finishing my first book and hope to have it out in 2025.
That outliers we are playing. Dan, it is absolutely fantastic to have you here. Thank you so much for being here. Why don't we go to you, Dr. Donaleah? Why don't you tell us more about you and the game you're currently playing?
First of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me. I feel so honored to be here and to be with such a wonderful panel here. And I am Dr. Donaleah Dedrick, and I am in Texas, Temple, Texas. And the name of my business is Music Makers Academy, Online Academy. But my ministry goes under my name, Dr. Donaleah Dedrick. And I am excited because I have been doing a lot of this for many years. Starting when I was a child, I was a church musician. And then now I have gone on and I'm in my 70s. And so I teach children that are my great grandchildren age. And I love it. And I developed a curriculum, which is a holistic approach to teaching small children the piano. And that's where I teach the whole child. That means I focus on the body, I focus on their spirit, because I want to build that spirit, man. And then I focus on the soul, which consists of your mind, will, and emotions. And I just love to get that smile on those little smile, the children's faces.
Well, I appreciate you bringing you and your energy into the mix here. I get that you're like I'm up to big things, and I'm not gonna stop. And so I continue. I'm excited for us to continue growing with each other. Thank you for being here, Mercedes. Let's get to know you. Tell us more about you and the game you're currently playing.
Alrighty. Well, first off, thank you, Niiamah, for inviting me and having me on here. I'm so excited to be able to just speak with the panel today. But my name is Mercedes Bethune. I am based in Virginia Beach, Virginia. By day, I work in marketing, but my passions lie in content creation, specifically focusing on just building a community around others navigating their 20s, getting into adulthood, and more specifically in womanhood, and just kind of sharing the realities of that, the ups, the downs, the fun passions, and just having some of those deeper conversations. And I am also actually finishing up my first book. It is an affirmations book called I Am Enough, Finding Yourself in a World of Illusions. So I am also looking to have that out at the top of 2025 and just continue to cultivate that community that I'm so big on.
Well, we are glad that you're here. Thank you for stepping in and stepping up to continue playing the game that you do. I appreciate you. Randy Lee, let's get to know you. Tell us about you and the game you're playing.
Yeah, so my name is Randi-Lee Bowslaugh. I play the game of life. So I am a podcaster and an author. My podcast is called The Write or Die Show, and I interview people across the world, other writers. We talk about mental health from their personal journeys, because it's all about letting people know they're not alone and they're sharing different coping strategies and what they can do. Yeah, I've published about 20-ish books, some affirmation journals. Mercedes, when you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, I've done that. And most recently, actually, this past weekend, I had my second book of poetry published come out. It's called Thoughts of a Warrior, which was a follow-up to my very first book in 2017, Thoughts of a Wanderer. So pretty exciting. And I'm in Canada, so that's me.
Awesome. So I'm loving this year. Randy, as we're recording this conversation, it's the end of 2024. And you just said like you published your very first book in 2017. So like my math goes off here. I'm like, okay, so you're averaging about like, 3 books a year, right? And there's something in there that I just want to like kind of just pull in because I'll having a lot of conversations with people nowadays and like spending time working with them on their visions and bringing their visions out to life. Like it's the thing I love. And I like a lot of times it can feel really overwhelming or very daunting, like as you said, I have like 20 books. It's like 20 books. How am I going to write 20 books? Look, 3 books a year still feels like a good pay, like a lot of writing, there was something about that where when you brought in like the time frame, I like breathed a little bit, I was like, oh, okay, wait, like it's doable. And so this is the first question I'm going to bring in here for each of you all. I'll leave it up to whoever feels called to start the conversation to go in. I'm going to mute myself afterwards. But I'm curious about you and some of the things that you've learned about like your relationship to time, especially as you like continue to take on bigger and bigger projects, bigger goals, setting up bigger vision. So uh, I'll leave it. It is vague in a certain way because I want to actually leave space for real new insights to come in. So if you mind talking about you and your relationship to time, that'd be awesome.
I'll start only because you mentioned oh wow, it's about 3 books here. So a couple of interviews ago, somebody was like, how many have you written? I go, I don't know. And they counted and they're like, oh my gosh, it's like 20. And I go, oh, how did I do that? So like I didn't even realize how I did that. So I think for me, time is, I don't know, ever fleeting, right? Like I don't go, okay, I need to write this many books each year. I follow the passion. So if the passion matches the time, then the passion matches the time. Like from my first to my second book, there was an entire year that went by. And then from my second book to my third book, honestly, I want to say that it was like 2 years went by. So time is just, it doesn't matter to me per se. I follow the passion. And if the passion is to write a kid's book, because I've written books for adults, books for kids, some journaling books, that's all encompassed in the 20. So whatever the passion is at that time, I'll flow with that. And then whatever the time frame is that works for it, that's the time frame that I follow. I don't want to pigeonhole myself into all these deadlines because that's just way too overwhelming for me.
That's a good insight. And I think that's a great question. I think it's one of the more challenging things I would say for me, because I also have a busy day job. I'm a dad of 2 smaller kids who have busy schedules, proud husband as well. So there's a lot of things that are going on. I think a couple of the things that are most important are prioritization. You got to have your priorities straight and understand when you can say no and when you have to say no to certain things. That's something that I'm not great at. However, I've definitely had to become better at is saying no, because I have to keep, the eye on the prize, so to speak, and keep my vision with what I want to accomplish and where I want to get to. The other part of it is discipline. I'm someone who's big into working out as just one example. I'm big into a morning routine as another example. There's certain boxes that I want to check every single day. And so I stay disciplined with what I know that I have to get done for that day and make sure in advance I plan ahead for it. So if there's shortcuts I have to create the day before that's going to make my next day easier or more manageable, then I make sure I put those things in place. But I think having that discipline, prioritization, and also the ability to say no are also important.
To me, with time is flexibility in my season of life, because I am retired and my world is online. I teach online. I teach the children online, and when I minister and I do my coaching and everything, I do that online. And I want to tell you a little bit about my ministry and everything. I had gotten COVID in my eyes. Now, you guys, I really can't see you. I don't have facial recognition in my eyes. And so that started me to doing the sound healing that I work with other clients as far, because I found out that was helping me, because the doctors, it was nothing that they could really do for me except for me to do the eye exercises and for me to do the gymnastics now that we're doing, that I do with my doctor online that's in Chicago, that I do the exercises and everything. And my vision is getting better. I'm beginning to, every now and then you'll come in and out where I can see faces, but I can see everything else. Like I'm in my room, this room here, I can see everything else. But as far as if you put something in the chat, things like that, I cannot see it unless I use my Zoom and bring it up and everything. But the healing journey that I am on, I'm bringing in a community as we're working together, healing, and we're doing this just one day at a time.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with taking it a day at a time. For me, I'd say a big part of my growth and my process has kind of been making my time work for me. I've found over the years, I kind of come up with these like timelines that I think I have to hit, and like everything has to happen in this space in this time, whether it's in a long term or even on a day to day. But becoming, I guess, just more lenient with being able to ebb and flow with time, but also say I am in a phase where maybe I'm more productive in the mornings or maybe I'm more productive in the evenings, not forcing myself to try to fit in this box of like, well, they say if you get up at 5 every day and you make everything work, maybe that's not the phase of life I'm in right now. But if I am, that's awesome. But if not, making the most of what's the most just operationally efficient for me and being okay with things changing and shifting my own timelines for whatever it is that I may be doing.
Yeah, when you were saying that, Mercedes, I was like, oh my goodness, yes. Because so many times I've been on interviews or interviewing other writers, and the question always comes up, well, how do you manage your time writing? Do you write every day? And a lot of the people that I interview, if that question arises, is, yep, I make myself write an hour a day, or I have to hit this many words or whatever. And I'm like, no, I don't, because I have to make my time work for me.
That makes
Right. And
sense. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I've actually experienced the same thing when I'm writing this book. There's been times where I've gone a couple of weeks without putting much into it because I just wasn't in the right mind space, didn't have the ideas that were flowing and coming in the right place. So had I had some arbitrary number that I had to accomplish each day, I don't think that the product would have been as high quality as it could have been, simply because I put some random number on it. And I think you hit on something too, where it's like, and I ask this question to other people, like, does your time use you, or do you use your time? Like, you got to go on the offensive, because sometimes people do things that are not really moving the needle for them, like whether it's streaming a lot of TV shows, or if they're sitting there scrolling social media forever. And then if that's the case, not that I'm against watching TV every once in a while, don't get me wrong, but you also have to go on the offensive and you have to take control of the clock, because we all have the same 24 hours in a day. So instead of taking that 30 minutes to scroll social media, maybe take 30 minutes and do something that's going to better yourself and improve yourself and let you develop yourself.
I agree with that. Yeah, to always self-improvement is so important. And myself, now I'm a morning person personally, but I function all day. But in the morning, my best time is around between 4 and 6 o'clock in the morning. And I like to get up and I put on Bob Proctor, his affirmations. I just have a playlist that I'll listen to, is the gratitude, I am grateful for this day. I am grateful. I am successful. All of those wonderful things. And I love listening to that. And I'm doing that early in the morning. And I just love being the morning person and doing my little thing that I like to do, those affirmations, listen to them, and then I'll be saying them too.
It's a great way to start your morning. I put a morning routine in place about maybe a year and a half, well, no, I'm sorry, 2.5 years ago, I'd say at this point. And part of that morning routine is a gratitude practice. And there's something about just being up before the rest of the world and it's quiet and I'm not, answering stressful emails or taking difficult calls, or I'm not running the kids around somewhere. And it's just my time to kind of step aside and get myself right for the day. And a gratitude practice is definitely part of that. So I can appreciate that in the morning.
I think starting your day right sets you up for better success. Whether or not you get to, because we brought up writing, whether or not you get to the writing, doesn't matter. But setting yourself up mentally for the right part of the day, if you can have this start it right, it'll set you to be able to be more persistent and more resilient throughout the day, even if bad things happen, because life happens.
Yeah, and in that case, you already get it taken care of. You've taken care of things before that the life happens, and then things kind of interfere with what your plans were. And see, when your morning and when your day.
Yeah.
Well, what you
Time in the morning is like something that's been more crucial for me. Like lately I've been doing, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, I'm sure you probably are, with like the 5-minute journal, just doing that and kind of like priming my mind to just focus on the good. Because I know it can be so easy to kind of get caught up and then your day kind of snowballs from there. So doing that, and then in conjunction, I do a devotional journal, I feel has been so helpful in just letting me face the day in a better mindset. Because even I know, like, after a full day of working, I still have other things I want to work on, but I know how exhausting it can be to go through the whole day and you're like, I still have a laundry list of stuff to do at the end of the day, and you feel like you have no time for yourself, just to have like downtime and just like personal relaxation to decompress and just take a beat. So I 100% agree with just having that pocket in the morning can be a make or break factor.
I like what you're saying, because that laundry list of stuff to do, but there's never a me time. Your me time should be on your laundry list, because if you don't have your me time, you're not getting through the rest of your laundry list. Whether it's, your 5-minute journal, or I like to do 10 minutes of Pilates, right? Like that's my jam. So whatever it is, you have to carve out that time for you, whether or not you think you can, because it gives you that little bit of boost that you're like, huh, okay, now I've got my positive vibes going again from 5 or 10 minutes, and you can tackle whatever your to-do is. But if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not taking care of that to-do.
So now we're gonna play a little bit here. Now I'm gonna bring in like the outlier element of this here, right? So I'm here like, all right, let's get that morning routines on and all that. And these are the things I do to get myself situated on here. Now I want to get to the things that like most people wouldn't know, right? What are the what's something that you do that most people either don't do, won't do, or can't do that works well for you, right? What's something you do, like, so for me, like, I can talk for hours. So I can go back to back to back and back to back with podcast panels and such like that, right? And most other people, like, they hear it and they're just like, you're so busy. I'm like, I don't know. Other people work and they go to the office and they do things for several hours in a row and they're expected to do it. Like, what has changed as a result of this? So this might be a habit that you have. It might be something that you bring inside of your business or the way that you go through. But I'm curious about the outlier components of what it is that you do. Anyone want to start us off on this?
Yeah, I will. It's about the power of music. Um, by being a pianist, I play music, and I can also play music for healing. And I've always done that, because when I was playing for church, they would always say, when you play your music, it just heals. It just makes me feel good. And so I've sort of capitalized on that, and I use it in my sound healing, but then I also use my voice to use for healing and sound, the power of sound, the power of music. Because a long time ago, the Greeks, and especially in the doctrine of ethos, it talked about the different modes, such as the Dorian scale. You had the Lydian scale, so many different scales, and they were assigned to different way it would vibrate in the person, how it make them feel. It could make them be energetic, it could make them just calm them down, and some could be very negative, but I'm into, positive energy. That's my motto is positive mind, positive vibes gives you a positive life. And I just use music to do that.
I love that. So I'm gonna totally veer. I didn't know what I was gonna say, and then as you were talking, I don't know why this is what popped into my head. Telling people no. It sounds like such a simple thing, but so many people can't do it. They just can't because they want to always be helpful and helpful. But you know what? I said it before. If you don't take care of you, you don't take care of the to-do list. So no, I'm not going to your house for this dinner. No, I'm not going to do whatever. No is a complete sentence. You don't need to give a reason. The reason could simply be that you personally don't have the energy, the capacity to give out, but you don't have to explain that to somebody else. So much easier said than done. I never used to be able to do it, and that's why I think some outliers might say, "Oh, yeah, right. No, that's a word.
So
That's a
Randi-Lee,
thought."
what shifted for you? What got you to this place? Like just so we can help make that real.
Yeah, so my youngest has autism. And when she was, for lack of a better term, going totally crazy, and we didn't know what to do because she didn't quite have the diagnosis yet and things like that. And people were still saying, "Oh, can you help me do this? Or can you do this? Or can you do this?" And I'm like, I literally can't. Like I have nothing left in me. There is literally nothing else I can give. And so finally it snapped. I went, huh, I don't have to do everything. I really don't. And so even now, so she's now 18 and doing quite well. Still things to work on, of course, but doing quite well. And that learned lesson of I can say no, because I was totally up to my eyeballs with just, oh my goodness. And then dealing with my depression and just dealing with everything was it's helped to continue with that learned lesson of no is okay.
I love that. And even like piggybacking off of that, as you're saying, like no is a complete sentence. In the same term, something that I feel like I've been doing that maybe most people aren't doing, and it sounds crazy because it's so simple, but it's harder than I think most people like to admit it is being just real with myself, like on a regular basis. I was having a conversation recently with my boyfriend, and something he said to me was, he saw it in a video and it really stuck with me. It was, your capacity for growth is dependent upon the amount of truths you can accept about yourself before running away. And that is something that really, like, I don't know, it just kind of brought a light to the fact that I think, and it could just be me because I can't speak for anybody other than myself. It's so easy to run from like what you know to be true, what you're trying to be in denial of, whether it's I have it all together, whether it's I can do everything under the sun. And of course you can, but in a bigger scale, how you go about your days, your decision making, what you pursue, just deciding what makes you happy and walking away from certain things is, can you be real with yourself and then dictating your actions off of that?
That's good. And
So
I would
so
just,
many people. Oh, sorry.
no,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
Just gonna say what when you were saying that so many people, especially when she was going through the worst of trying to figure out supports and stuff, so many people are like, "Oh, you're so strong. I don't know how you do it." That is one of the most insulting things that somebody said to me because I'm not doing it. I clearly do not have this all together. You are not complimenting me right now. I do not have this all together, but that's what they perceive, right? And inside you're like freaking out. And so knowing my truths, like you said, accepting that was like a whole other lesson along with the learning to say no is exactly what you were saying. And when you articulated it there, I was like, kind of flashback to 10 years ago when people would walk up to me at work. I don't know how you do all this. I have no choice. I just do.
And then Niiamah, I guess I would just interject with so I have 3 P's every day that I try to get, and I try to do it in the morning. And the 3 P's are positive thinking, personal development, and prime the body. And a lot of times I try to get those things done before I start my work day. And it's just things like I have a routine. Sometimes I'll switch it up a little bit, but going back to what was said before about a gratitude practice, then a meditation, I pray, read the Bible. The whole time I'm drinking water to stay hydrated, because 75% of the people walk around chronically dehydrated, and that can have major impact on your performance, your effort, a lot of things, your thinking, your reaction time. And so I also do something for personal development, whether it's reading, listen to a podcast, whatever it might be. Do cold water immersions. I'm not sure if anyone here does cold water plunging, but it's good, or red light therapy, or stretching, or something along those lines to try to prime the body for the day. And then exercise usually is done after work, but those are like 3 P's that I make sure I get in: positive thinking and going on the offensive of trying to have a positive mindset, personal development with growing in some way, again, podcast, books, reading, whatever it might be, and then priming the body for the day as well through different physical type actions. And I think that's pretty unique in a sense that I'm not sure that a lot of people will do that, but I would recommend those things. And I do find it to be beneficial personally.
Love this here. Like y'all are taking me down the place. We probably have time for one more question here, and then we're gonna like shift to a different way. Um, but I'm liking this element of like, Randi, you were talking about something, and I think the way that I heard it is through the phrase of, we often compare how we feel on the inside with how others look on the outside, right?
Yes.
And so I like, I think for this conversation, I'm really curious. Like you all come together and like y'all are on your game. You're here. You're making moves. You're leading out in the world, like so on and so forth. And like I appreciate you all for being willing to share some of the things that are happening on the inside, so that we can see like what the actual truths are. Mercedes, to your point, like keep it real, right, with us here. Um, I would like to. I think I'm going to end on this question here, but I'm curious about like, what is something about you that most people wouldn't know, that it, I want to frame it almost like that most people wouldn't know was required or was a part of your journey in order for you to be where you are right now. I like, for me, the way this kind of works is like, I grew up and I was a retirement actuarial consultant. I also worked in tech at some point. And at that point, I was part of what I call the 3% club, because they're like 3% of all people who are actuaries in America at this time are African American. 3% of people in tech at this time are African American. And it led to this thing. I'm like, what am I doing differently than others? What is going on there? Right. And that's kind of like a place there there's a lot to unpack around all that. But I get curious for you all here, where it's like, people might look at you, or they might hear your story, they might make assumptions around you here, but if they really knew you, like deep down, they'd be like, this is what it actually took for me to be in this space with you all. Does anyone have anything that they would like to put into this mix here?
I can say that I had a lot of start all over. And I would begin things. I have worked for companies, one of the biggest companies here in Texas. I worked, and then when I decided to do my own thing, start my own business, I failed and I got up, went a few years, failed again, got back up. Then I moved away and started in a different location with different people and did well. And what I like to share is that, and I found out about myself, is that for me not to be afraid to fail and start all over again, regardless. I had to guard my mind about, keeping that positive mindset. I had to really and keep that positive energy going inside of me. I couldn't let negative influences, oh, you're doing that again. I couldn't let all of that talk and all of that stuff getting into my head and getting into my spirit. So I had to basically kind of set that away, turn that off, turn off that negative energy, and really just kind of put myself in this imaginary bubble of positivity and move forward. So I always tell younger people, don't be afraid to start all over again or to reinvent yourself.
I like that part about don't being afraid to fail. I think that's fantastic input there. Mine is, I almost got here as a byproduct of an experience that I had. And so, about 3 years ago, I had a near death experience, and What happened was, so I was at the beach one night with my family. So I have a wife and two kids. At the time, my kids were, I believe, 7 and 5. And we got to the beach one night. We actually weren't even supposed to be there. We weren't supposed to be in that location. We were actually supposed to stay with our friends, but before we went on the trip to the beach, they got a stomach bug the day before, and so didn't want to let my kids down and not still go. So we scrambled to find a place to stay. We found a place to stay last minute. Got there, and then we went. One of the last days of our trip, we went to the beach all day long, and then we went back to our house or our hotel, and we were going to get ready to go out to dinner, but my wife had made sandwiches earlier in the day, and so we snacked on those, and we weren't hungry anymore. So instead of us going to dinner like our plans were, we ended up going back to the beach that night because it was such a nice night. And when we got to the beach, I noticed that the water was super choppy and just looked a lot different than it did earlier that day. And so my wife and I, we usually play man-to-man defense with the kids. So my wife was taking my son out to the water to splash in the waves because that's like his favorite thing to do. So I said, if you go out there, just stay to the right. The water looks less choppy. And my daughter, she wanted to build sandcastles. And so we looked up at the water and we noticed it looked like a football, like a black football out in the water beyond where the waves start to roll in towards the beach. And we kept looking up there, and every couple of minutes, it was still in the same spot. And we honestly thought maybe it was a Pittsburgh Steelers football. It was turned the other way because it was just a black like ball out there. And then after a couple of minutes, I was building our sandcastles. We looked out, and that ball just turned over, and we saw a little kid's face. And so the lifeguards that are normally at every block when you're there during the day, they kind of minimize that to every 4 blocks at nighttime, and we were right in the middle. And so there were no lifeguards around. And, I'm looking around to see, does he have somebody with him, like a brother or a cousin or an uncle or a dad, something? And there was nothing. And so I'm looking around again, and all of a sudden I see a mom where the water meets the sand, just standing there and screaming at the top of her lungs, looking out at him. And I'm like, I can't let this kid, go out there and not try to help him and not try to help his mom out. And, I've been a strong swimmer my whole life, and I was a Division I athlete, and my kids in the summer, they're on my back all the time in the pool or wherever we are. So I thought it was going to be easy. So I told my daughter to stay at the seat, stay in the beach chair. I'm going to try to go out there and help the kid. And, I ran out and was sprinting, and then I started breaststrokes, and I got out to him, and he was just screaming at the top of his lungs. And as soon as I got out to him, I'm like, it's okay, buddy. I got you. I'm not going to let you go. And he wrapped his arms around me. And when he wrapped his arms around me, I had no arms to try to get us to swim back to the beach. And so I realized when I started to kick in that I was kicking in, but I couldn't make any headway whatsoever because I think what happened was he was playing at the edge of the beach, and I think the water sucked him out. And it was such a powerful and relentless current that I couldn't get out of it. And so, I remember just thinking to myself when I'm kicking, and at that point, I realized, like, I honestly don't think I'm going to make it. Like, I couldn't keep us above water. Waves are crashing over top of us. And one of the thoughts that came to my mind was, if I make this, like, I got to have more of an impact. There's so much I want to do. There's so much more I want to give, so many lessons I want to teach my kids. And if this really is the end of my life, I'm going to meet my maker. I want to be able to for other people to say, like, this guy had a positive impact on me and he influenced me in some way. And I also thought, I can't believe my wife and kids are watching me die. It was just like a lot of thoughts going through my head as I'm out there. And so as I'm trying to kick in and water's going over top of us, I finally realized, like, I have to get at least one of my arms free or neither one of us are going to make it. So, I grabbed his wrist with my one arm and I pushed him gently on his chest away from me so I can free my one arm to try to keep us above water. And it started to help. And what I realized at the time was that my wife noticed what was going on. She was out in the water with my son, and it was a family of about 4 or 5 that were at the beach throughout the week. And we would see them. We didn't talk to them, but I just saw them around our same location. And she screamed to them to, like, her husband needed help to go over. And so I'm fighting to keep us above, and I'm kicking. Finally, like, another wave went over top of us. And when we hit the bottom, I realized that we were closer than I thought. So we were making a little bit of headway, and I kicked backwards. And when I kicked backwards, I looked up and I saw that family was over there and built like a little chain. And I got the kid and handed him off to the first person. They kind of hooked his arm and brought him in. And then I was close enough to walk, but the other people helped me up. And it was just like a blur at that point. Like I was so grateful to make it. His mom ran over and was hugging me, and I think he was throwing up in the sand. And by that time, there were lifeguards and trucks, and the white trucks, the yellow lights, and asked me if I'm okay, and this and that. And make a long story short, I got back to my chair, and my daughter was like crying because she thought I was gonna get sucked out to the water and they'll never see me again. And my son's like clapping. He's like, "You're a superhero, daddy!" And people are running over to me and talking about other experiences of rip currents they've seen. And after that, it was hard for me to shake mentally. Like I got past it. We made it. I survived. I actually took my kids back to the exact same location the next day because I didn't want them to be afraid of the water or to go to the beach. And the beach has always been our happy place. But for almost a year, I struggled with it. I was having flashbacks. I would dream about it. If I would be at the pool, like I'd always be on edge. If I saw a TV commercial with water, it would take me back there mentally. And I tried things to get over it, but I couldn't shake the trauma. And so how I actually ended up breaking the trauma was by doing what I'm doing now and by teaching what I teach other people to do and by instilling the pillars. Like I read book after book and listened to podcast after podcast, and I tested all these things on myself to try to get over it. And then finally it worked. And like these things that I'm doing now worked. And that's kind of how I turned it into a business to try to help other people, is because I know that the trauma turned into transformation for me, and I want to be able to help other people do that as well. And so I know my story was longer, but that's how I got into this. It was almost a byproduct of me trying to experiment these things on myself to get past that experience.
Hey, Dan, thank you for that. Uh, Personally, I'm glad your story was longer in the sense that like your story didn't end there, right? I get excited for what comes in here, and thanks for showing up here. Like there was, I think you could feel it, like we were with you on that. Um, there are, yeah, these are the things where like we don't know what it takes for someone to show up, and I appreciate all of you here. We're gonna start wrapping up for today, but like I like to share these kinds of things. I like to give us space for these kinds of things here because um there's who people think we are on the outside, and it's like, but you don't know, like Dan, what I hear from you is like, yes, we're meeting you right here, but you've had a whole at least a year of having to like to get to this point, and what I get from you is like you keep working on it to stay in this place, and you keep growing from there. And I think, outliers, as we wrap up this conversation, I'd like to give us the space here to keep finding ways to let the things that are on the inside out. Dan, before we hit record, he's like, yeah, if I get a chance to talk to you about this year, like I'll love to do it. I'm glad you did. I'm glad that chance was that you took that chance in here. Because it all adds up. It all means something. So I think we're gonna wrap on this here. I want to make sure we can come together, and honestly, I'm still just like feeling it right now, like deeply, and I'm appreciative of it. Just I have two young kids under the age of 4 at the time of this recording. I just want to just go run and hug them right now. Um, so we're gonna close in a couple different ways. The first one here, Outliers, I'm gonna come to you. Uh, this is what happens when you bring together powerful people, and you bring space and bring more room for that power to come out. All right. And I'm sure that there's someone in your life right now who's incredibly powerful, who has a story that could be shared or could really gain from the conversation that was happening here today. My ask here is that you go and you share this episode with that one person. Call it the one person, one conversation at a time initiative. I know that you have your own platforms. The outliers listening to this typically do. Please go ahead and share that on that platform. Like that'd be great for so many different reasons. But underneath it all, we run this initiative, one person, one conversation at a time. What if we can shift things that way? And so if you're listening to this, if you can think of one person in your life who you think would really benefit from hearing any part of this conversation, please go and share it to them as your gift to let them know that they belong and that you are thinking of them. That would mean the absolute world to me. All right, y'all. So I'm going to come back to you four. As we wrap up for today, the way that I like to close is to give us a chance to share our contact information so that outliers have a chance to go deeper with us. Let us know your best contact information. I think a lot of us have different ways to go through, just like one or two things. That's just like, this is where I live. And then let them go from there. And then we also share an insight that you got from the conversation, something that you're walking away from this conversation with. And if you didn't get any insights, that's totally fine. You don't have to make up anything. Like, we good, but we'll let that live. Sound good? All right. Awesome. So Dan, why don't we come back to you? Start us off here. Let us know an insight you got from today and how Outliers can go deeper down the journey with you.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that kind of stuck out to me was I appreciate the books that everyone was talking about too, and them being authors. Not that that's the biggest thing we're looking for, but I'm going to circle back to that in a second. And Jim Rohn has this quote. It's like, don't let your learning lead to knowledge, let your learning lead to action. And so I think that, Randi-Lee wrote 12 books just while we were on this episode just now. So if she can have all those done in the last couple of years, I think I can get mine wrapped up and try to get it out there in 2025. So the fact that everybody on here has written at least one book and has actually, finished a process and in some cases multiple times, that it really kind of ignited me and it's given me that final fuel that I need to get to the finish line to get mine out there. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate people out there putting forth that effort. I know if all of you can do it, then it's given me the inspiration to finish mine up. So I greatly appreciate that. People can reach me. My website is just Dan O'Rourke Consulting, and my last name can be spelled differently. So it's just, www.DANOROURKE consulting.com. My most popular way that you can get a hold of me via social media is on Instagram, and it's Dr.Dan O'Rourke. So it's Dr.DANOROURKE. And then my podcast is called The Optimal You, and it's the letter U. So it's like kind of for you to become your optimal you, but also you like university, where it's a place where you can learn health, wellness, and personal development. So best way to get a hold of me is there. Feel free to go on my website. There's links to my emails on there, links for a free discovery call. You can click on there, sign up for a free 30-minute talk. Won't cost you a thing just to have the conversation, and we can kind of go from there. And thank you again for having me on, Niiamah.
Well, Dan, it's a pleasure to have you here. I appreciate you. Randi-Lee, let's come to you. Let us know about an insight you got and how we can go down the journey with you.
So I like to write stuff down. So two big things that I wrote down. We can do heavy things. Really like that. And we can expand to the amount of truth we can take. That was like, oh, aha. Those were the two big insights, I would say. You can find me. My website is rbwriting.ca, Canada. And then my YouTube channel or Spotify, whatever, is The Write, like you're writing something, or Die Show. And then my handles for Instagram and TikTok, just Randi-Lee Bowslaugh.
Thank you, Randi-Lee. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here. Dr. Donaleah, why don't we come to you, and then we'll wrap up with Mercedes bringing this up. So would you mind sharing with us an insight you got from today and the best way to contact you?
Yes, of course. The insight that I had gotten today, this was so wonderful, is I really just took in the positive energy and the positivity of the conversation. And I also realized that all of them, they never give up. It's a continuous learnings experience, a continuous growth, whether it's spiritual growth, physical growth, or an emotional growth. And that's what I love about this, is that I just felt all that wonderful energy here, and I love it. And the best way to contact me is by my name, Dr. Donaleah, DonaleahDedrick. That's through Instagram, that's TikTok, that's through LinkedIn, and also Facebook. And then also for my business, studio music makers at gmail.com, and that's spelled STUDIO. Music is MUSIK at gmail.com. And my phone number is 254-421-0221. And I want to thank you so much for inviting me and being on this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful journey podcast.
You're on mute.
I was gonna say you might be muted.
I am very muted. I was trying a different way. I was trying to use a space bar to like you can temporarily unmute, and
Never
it just was not
works.
working. Yeah, it was like I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go back to tried and true. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate that. It's cool because like two people today have put their numbers, like gave us the numbers, and like it's the first time it's happened, and I've had a couple episodes of this, so I'm like, oh, maybe numbers are coming back in style here. I love it. I love it. Mercedes, bring us home. Let us know about an insight you got and how we can best go on the journey with you.
So I think probably one of the biggest insights I got today is just maybe a new look on how I regard impact. Even just listening to Dan's story, just you being scared truly that like that could be it for you and coming out of it saying I really need to make a change in how I live my life. And it really spoke to me because this year impact has been something that I've just been struggling to think about and worrying, am I leaving an impact on those around me and with what I'm trying to do? But I think something that kind of brought it to perspective was, quite frankly, when you emailed me and you reached out and you're like, I found your podcast, and it was a podcast I made when I was 21 and I'm about to be 26 in a month and a half. So I'm like, if you liked what I had to say, then oh, hello. If you liked what I had to say then, to bring me on now, and I'm such a different person now, that to me shows me that I already have impact in some way, and just continuing to like just expand upon that and grow and recognize where I'm at now and look forward to what I'll have in the future. So that's my insight. But best way to reach me would be through my Instagram. It is at Sadie's Alexandria. That is CEDESALEXANDRIA. And I have a link in my bio there that will take you anywhere to my YouTube, my TikTok, and eventually my book.
Y'all are amazing individuals. I'm just so grateful for you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for bringing this to the space. Mercedes, thank you for letting me know about the emails. It's one of the things I look at. I'm like, if as long as you're playing this game and you've shown up that you have as a leader with purpose and you've taken the action to come along with it, you're in. You're an outlier in my book. Like, let's go and play. And thank you for doing the work you do. I'm excited for what comes from here, from all of y'all and you outliers that are listening. In fact, remember this until the next time we talk, be you on purpose. Journey on.